And we're close enough.
No Steve tonight.
So good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Readfield Select Board. It is April 29th, 2025 at 6:30. I'll call the meeting to order. And if you would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a rather short agenda tonight. We'll see if that translates to shortened time. Regular meeting items 25-089 are minutes of two meetings. I believe one was a select board and one was a hearing. I would entertain a motion.
I was absent for the 7th, so I can.
So that'll be Dave or Jaren.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the 4/16
4/7.
4/7 meeting. Sorry.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Those abstaining due to absence. And then we had a public hearing.
Make a motion to approve the minutes for the April 16th meeting. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the joint select board and budget committee meeting, hearing, regular meeting minutes. That's a long title. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous. Okay, next on our agenda. Oh, I'm not used to this computer. Our warrants 41 to 44, item number 25-090. Take it away, Dave.
All right. See if I can duplicate what I did last time.
I bet you can.
Big highlights were the payment to the RSU, $363,099.85. Is it the next to the last? I think you corrected me last time, Eric. Payment to Scott Warren for the plow contract, $46,732.01. We got the permitting started for the fairgrounds, $3,265 in permits to the DEP. $66.48 in dispatch fees, $96.27.36 in tipping fees, and $28,836 to Winthrop ambulance. And then on the other warrant, there was $2,000 to Dave Ledoux for assessing, $2,500 towards the revalve to Dirigo assessing. Cumulatively, there was $31.27.77 from the rec department for softball and baseball uniforms, and then the same with Elan Financial for $5,552.04. And I'm assuming that's all the new computers and equipment.
Elan Financial, or Elan Financial, or however you pronounce that. That is the our municipal credit card that we have.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of an aggregation of things that we have to buy online, where we don't necessarily want to go and create a whole separate vendor account for a one-off or things like that. So
it looked like a lot of it was the tech equipment, so I assumed.
yeah, I think a lot of it was just the tech equipment, but it's the I guess what I'll say is that the financial services isn't the provider of the computer hardware. It's just the financial.
It's the credit card.
It's the credit card. Yep, exactly.
And that's all I got.
Okay. So let's see.
So I'll make a
motion for the first set.
Make a motion to approve warrants 41 to 42, the sum of $521,596.34.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the warrant 41 and 42, which we have all already previously reviewed and signed. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous. And the next warrant?
Make a motion to approve warrants 43 and 44, the sum of $58,718.30.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for warrants 43 and 44, which also we have already all signed and reviewed. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. for anybody who might be watching this at any time, the reason we do this is so that it's entered into the public record. It's in writing and it's on, it's recorded video and audibly.
Audibly.
Put a B in there.
One of those things. You can listen to it. Okay, moving on, we have regular, we have communications. Does anyone from the select board have anything they'd like to discuss? Jared?
I would just ask Eric for feedback on the monitors that the town recently purchased.
Well, they're well received. They have helped with productivity, and Kristen got jealous, so I had to order 2 for her.
I
So,
love it.
you know,
Even better.
even better. But no, I do think it's going to a big improvement with productivity and just the comfort of you know, getting things done instead of having to go back and forth. So it'll be worth it. They'll last a good long time. So yeah.
Could one of you please
Excellent.
tell us what this is?
So we had purchased dual monitors for Teresa and also for Angelica, so that they could both do multiple things. And so for things like working on the warrant, you can look at the Word version and the PDF version, or you can look at documents from the land use ordinance that was being input into our packet for the select board meeting, and just feed things across. So it's an improvement. So
Great. It just wasn't clear if someone didn't know what we were talking about, that we have side-by-side monitors now.
yeah, and we've seen, you know, a few other things come through that have been helpful and productive, yeah, so.
Great. Anybody else? I'd just like to thank everybody for coming, not Sean, but Steve. But Steve, Dave, Jaren, and I all attended the volunteer appreciation, and we gave out celebration on Sunday, and we gave out one Spirit of America award. Sean was busy. That's fine that he wasn't there. Did not mean that the way it came out.
Bill also zoomed in on my shamed face, but that's okay.
Oh, man. Anyway, it was a really nice time. The people that came out really enjoyed it. And then near the end, a whole bunch of the younger Readfield residents who had been out working on the ball field showed up and finished off, I think, most of the food, so nothing went to waste. So that was awesome. Do we want to say anything about that award?
I think it's, yeah, appropriate. Yeah.
Would you like to do that?
Well, sure. So the Spirit of America Award went to Lee Mank for his service as the fire chief, and the many things he does outside of that role. And Steve said it very well, that his contributions go much further than just that one thing. He's a good neighbor and has done a lot for people in town. So that was what the award was for.
And I think the fire department folks were about half of those in attendance. So it was nice that people came out for him.
And we do have one other Spirit of America that we're trying to figure out how we're going to get that delivered. So we won't announce that one, but
Okay, and we'll do that most likely at a select board meeting.
yeah, I think at this point, yeah.
Yep, okay. We'll try to figure that out so there can be some supporting cast here. Staff communication, we have a code enforcement report that was in the packet. Looked like things were kind of similar to a year ago. Was there anything anyone wanted to note from Chip's report?
Nothing from his report, but I did want to mention that he's been making progress with dealing with some of those issues that we had with land use, with folks, not using waste facilities. And so that's moving along. And I just want to give an update to the board there that he's active in a lot of different areas. Construction is picking up a little bit with the weather, but it's still a little bit subdued because of people just aren't buying materials at this point right now, it seems. So we've got a number of projects that were started but aren't progressing the way we would have expected they would. Chip has been doing a good job, and I appreciate the report that he gave us. So.
Yeah, it was informative as it has been in the past. Oh, okay. There seem to always be a few enforcement issues, so we get one or two resolved and then a new one crops up. And we're grateful to have someone who handles that for us. So thank you, Chip. Okay, boards, committees, commissions, and departments. We received minutes from the Age-Friendly Committee, the Budget and Select Board joint meeting that we just approved, the Open Space Working Group, the Planning Board, the Road Committee, and the Trails Committee. And everybody's doing things timely, which maybe we have to stop reminding people of now that it seems everybody's doing that. So that's like really awesome. You're welcome, Ralph. So always good to read. They are online, so anyone can read them and see what's going on around town. Next is public communications. We don't have anyone online, but we have one member of the public here who I think is here for something else, but do you have anything else you'd like to say? Hi, okay, hi. It's nice to have company. We'll move on to appointments, reappointments, and resignations. We are considering the appointment of Bill Drake to the Road Committee. This is item 25-091. Bill, you've been on other committees previously, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay, so you didn't have to show up tonight, but thank you for coming. Would anyone like?
Came to a council meeting before.
Bill has applied for an open seat that's for, it's a regular position, correct? Or is this a filling in?
This is a regular vacancy, yeah.
A regular vacancy, okay, so this will be for position through June 30th, 2027. And if anyone would like to ask Bill anything, you are welcome to ask him to come to the podium, or I would take a motion.
I just have a question. Do you mind going to the podium, Bill? Do you mind going to the mic just so folks online can hear you? So Bill, I was just curious what in your why you were interested in applying. You wrote to further the safe street concept. What is that?
The safe streets concept. Oh, wow, good. Basically, it says the streets, the roads, thoroughfare shall be safe for anyone, no matter whether motorized or non-motorized. And an example that I know of is they took a multi-lane street, closed off one lane and made it into bike lanes and sidewalks and things like that, you know, with even a priority at intersections with those lanes. So, you know, what it's designed to protect the people or keep them from the hazardous. And we had a lot of that on Church Road, a lot of hazards, and made a big inroad with what we ultimately wound up with the design. So an example, there was residents on the east side who don't have mailboxes. They're residents. And the reason they don't have mailboxes is they don't want to walk across the street because the traffic was just so horrendous. I mean, it's a drag strip in many respects. And we just had some motorcycles the other day that really gave us a good lesson on how fast you can go. That's basically it. And you know, there's a lot of that which we came up with and did that has application in the rest of the town. And I think that it's appropriate to consider those things. For instance, there's a crosswalk in Kent's Hill, and boy, nobody slows down for that. Really, I mean, the speed through Kent's Hill is as bad as Church Road. And even though the speed limit's higher there too.
Well, that's good. I think always keeping that forefront when we're doing any sort of road work and design and reconstruction is great to
There's
have.
another reason too, though. You know, I've been here for a few years and I've pretty much seen everything that you can do right and wrong with a road, a street. It's been demonstrated in front of my house all the time. And I think that having that kind of background and knowledge, maybe we can focus on doing things right the first time as opposed to winding up with rework and unsatisfactory performance. You know,
It's good to have different points of view on a committee and to ultimately work together to further things and spend our money the best way we can and get the best results with the smallest learning curve possible, right? Great. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve William Drake to the road committee for a term expiring 6/30/2027, starting immediately, correct?
Right.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous. You are now a member of the road committee.
Do I have to sign this?
Yeah. Just to make sure.
And we'll all sign it too, so then it'll be official.
29.
Alrighty, we're gonna move on to old business, which is 25-060. Consider the final draft of the June 10th, 2025 town meeting budget and warrant. Eric, you'll let us know of anything that is a change from a previous edition that we would have seen.
Yes, and there's only one that's notable. I'll take it when we get to it.
Okay, so if it meets the pleasure of the board, what we've done historically is to have one of you make a motion for any number of articles that you choose and having another person second it. It makes it much cleaner for our secretary. So if no one objects to doing it that way, that would be expeditious. And I guess we need to go down through all of the articles. So we're going from 1 through
38.
38, and I will take a motion from anyone.
I'll make a motion to accept Article 1 through 5 as written.
Second.
I have a motion to accept Articles 1 through 5 as written. Those are all essentially administrative articles. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is unanimous.
I'll make a motion to approve Articles 6 through 15 as written with a select board recommends yes statement.
Second.
I have a motion to approve Articles 6 through 15. I'm just going to name them. That is for administration, municipal maintenance, community services, rec, parks and activities, the protection department, cemeteries, materials and services, roads and drainage, solid waste, regional assessments, and debt service. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous.
I'd like to make a motion to accept Articles 16 through 24 as written with a select board recommends yes.
Second.
Computer's behaving now. I have a motion and a second to approve Articles 16 through what number?
24.
I was trying to make the computer behave through 24. And those are the 30 Mile River Association, the Central Maine Agency on Aging, Cohen Center and Senior Spectrum, the courtesy boat inspection programs, Family Violence Agency, Kennebec Behavioral Health, Marana Cook Food Bank, Sexual Assault Agency, was it 22?
24.
The Readfield Union Meeting House, and the Readfield Blizzard Busters Snowmobile Club. Is there any discussion? Seeing
You
none.
did motion first. Did you have a motion?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have a motion
Alright.
and a second.
Okay, great. So, I'm on a sequence here, but, Article 8, I just wanted to point out that was a reduction. So the one that, what we talked about at the, public hearing, was about $2,000 higher than that, because there was an error, in
Excel.
the math that we saw. So,
Yep.
that was corrected. We had, I think a decimal place or something, but,
That was the animal
it
control
was
one
the animal control
that I
one.
saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the insurance costs on that were wildly inflated. So it's actually lower now. So thanks for proving that.
Excellent.
Just wanted to point that out.
Okay, is there any discussion on the motion on the floor? All those in favor? It is unanimous. We're up to 25 now. I'm keeping track.
I'll make a motion to accept Articles 25 through 29 as written with the select board recommends yes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for Articles 25 through 29. Those are property tax abatements and overdrafts, general assistance, capital reserves, and to accept revenues estimated as written. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is unanimous. Boy, the budget committee must have done a great job.
I make a motion to accept Article 30 through 33 with a select board recommends yes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for Articles 30 through 33. I left out of the last one that Article 29 was the designated and trust funds. So in this motion, we have a contingency fund of just $10,000 for the select board if needed, to use money from the unassigned fund balance, to transfer some money from the unassigned fund balance to the capital reserve for roads, and for transfer station operating revenue to be transferred to the transfer station capital reserve. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, it is unanimous.
And I would like to make a motion to approve Articles 34 through 38 as written.
Sean, how do I make my screen come back?
What did you do?
I touched it.
There you go.
Second.
Oh, this is
Thought
great.
that would fit with there.
Would you like mine, Catherine? We can switch.
No,
Okay.
I just have to have a better touch here. So I have a motion and a second for Articles 34 through 38, which are amendments to the land use ordinance, the solar ordinance, the telecommunication tower ordinance, our noise standard ordinance, and our ordinance regulating storage and land application of sludge and other residuals.
Man, words are hard tonight.
Yes, wow. We need this to be a short meeting. Is there any
Working on it.
discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, it's unanimous. Okay, we've never gone through it this well before.
It's a very good year, clearly thought out, organized, nothing that we're really working on big projects like we all wanted for the year.
Right.
So that's why.
Yeah, and I think that's a good note for anybody that watches that we're not just going through this like we don't care. We've discussed all of these things at length. There's really nothing fancy in here. There's no big projects. It's basically just paying the bills and it's business. So it's not that we don't care. We've already talked about it.
And the budget committee has done a lot of work.
Exactly, yeah.
This
And
is
And have we met with them 3 times now? Three times we've met with them.
and there'll be one more.
One more next week.
And I'll just note, since this is a 108-page packet, that most of those pages are, all of those revisions to the ordinances are listed.
Yeah.
So if anybody is interested, they are all there. And I'll see if I can slide all the way down without losing my screen here. Nope.
Having trouble with that thing, huh?
I'm used to the mouse that
There's no
sits on the
touch screen?
side. Oh,
We can
that
get,
would
we can
not
get you one
work.
of those, Catherine, yeah.
No, I'm good. I'm almost there. I'm down
can't do
to
it on
page
here,
80
but
something.
the touch
So
screen
we're
is
making,
nice.
there we are, new business. Woo. I think this must have something to do with fire and protection services because Chief Menk is here. It's a
He's
good
sorry.
thing you came early because we're ahead of schedule.
I say he's here for the dispatch part.
Yes. So our new business item is 25-092. Consider Winthrop dispatch services and fees. I just want to say ahead of starting the discussion on this, that I did speak with Eric earlier this afternoon. And we're not looking for a decision tonight to either approve or not approve the Winthrop proposal. What we want to try and do tonight is decide if we want to stick with it or have some further investigation done for other options. And then once we have that information, we can pull everything together and make a decision, unless this board feels that what's presented here is exactly what we think is best for the town. And we'll take Eric and Lee's information to make that decision with. Thanks.
Okay, so I'll just give a quick background here. The reason we're reviewing this is because we did have a proposal from the town of Winthrop to increase the cost of dispatch services. And they applied the same formula that they had for their ambulance service. The catch, as you know, is that their dispatch also includes police calls. And those police calls are a large portion of the call volume and the need, in my view, for the service. So they came up with that proposal, and it would have been something like a 250% increase in the cost of that service for the town of Readfield and a lot of the other towns that are in our Lakes Region Mutual Aid group. And that we couldn't quite put our finger on it, but it eventually became very clear that that wasn't a good approach, and the model that was presented where 50-50, 50% of the call volume and 50% of the population was the formula that was used to arrive at the cost sharing. And that just doesn't make sense when you have such a differential in use by the towns of Monmouth and Winthrop. So we started working on that, and I appreciate the board kind of having some questions there, because it helped me dig a little bit deeper. And Lee, to his credit, was always skeptical, I think. So, but in any event, we started looking at it, and we had I drafted a document that's included here that includes some analysis based on that original proposal, but there are portions that are certainly relevant with their new proposal. But so we drafted that, and I sent it along to the town manager in Winthrop after he had met with the board here. And it spurred a second conversation. So Lee, Mank, and I went down and met with the folks again from Winthrop to just see if we could find a better way forward. And they seemed willing to consider something less substantial than what they had originally proposed. But in the end, it really didn't come out, I guess, in my view, as well as it could have or probably should. The proposal that we have in this letter effectively, it still, I think, is too much cost for the town of Readfield, relatively. It's better. It's a heck of a lot better than the 300 or 200% that we were looking at earlier. But I still don't think it's quite equitable. I did meet and talk with Anthony a little bit personally about this and see if there was anything else that could be done. But I do believe that a lot of this comes down to Winthrop's desire and potential need to cover costs, not so much about finding a fair and equitable way to distribute those costs. I think they're just looking for some extra revenue. And granted, they provide excellent service. They have some arguments that are plausible. I just don't happen to agree with the arguments that are being made that that if 80% of the calls are police calls and 20% are for fire and EMS, that we should be weighting those much differently than just by the number of calls. You know, my feeling, and I think Lee's as well, is that you need to have someone in that seat 24 hours a day, and multiple someones. And so the call volume really ought to be the primary driver. There is some difference, as noted in the letter from the town manager of Winthrop, in how much time each individual calls takes, but that is open for a little bit of debate as well, and I think Lee might talk to that. But I don't really know enough about those new numbers that were presented. And also, I do think that the model and approach that we took is the right approach, at least for us. Maybe not for Winthrop, but the right one for us. And so what I'm looking for, as Catherine mentioned, is for the board to consider what steps we should take going forward. We've tried a first round of negotiations. We've also started discussing the possibility of alternative service with the town of Winthrop, or not, excuse me, with the town of Waterville, and also with other service providers, city of Augusta, in different ways. And so there are some options out there. I think we have some good possibilities for service. And that's what Lee has been focusing on. I've been kind of working on negotiating with the town manager, and Lee's been working on some alternatives development. So I appreciate that help, because it made this possible to even get to this point. It was a hard spot in the budget process for us to even respond to this. And so what I'd like to do is try to have a few more weeks, a month, to get to the end of that review process and see what alternatives we can come up with other communities or other service providers, just so we know what decision we have to make. And that's what I'm looking for. But I guess, Lee, if you want to come up and give your piece, I've talked enough on it.
Just Just before you start, so we have dispatching in Article 10 at 65,173. What number did we put in there for the Winthrop thing?
So for that one, we put in the full cost, thinking that there was likely going to be that cost. This latest letter came out after the budget process was essentially complete from Winthrop, which gave us an alternative. But one thing I will say is we might end up spending that money anyway, because we might need to be buying equipment or making other investments to switch service providers. So it's not a bad.
The budget's not scary to leave it the way it is.
It's not scary to leave it the way it is, and if it comes back that we overcommit, then we can say next year's budget, we know we put too much money in for this, we're taking 10,000 or 20,000 out and putting it back into the general fund. So easily resolved.
But we are covered in the budget. I just wanted us to all be clear on that.
Yes, fully covered for the worst case scenario, which again, we've done some work and we're not there, but we might still need to spend some of that.
Sorry to interrupt. Thanks, Lee.
No interruption. So yeah, pretty much what Eric said. It's kind of a time crunch. Winthrop was kind of slow on getting us these numbers, so we haven't had a whole lot of time to work. I talked to Waterville Com, and why I kind of focused on Waterville Com is they dispatch Belgrade, and they seem really good. The state also giving back the PSAP, so they can answer 911 calls now. So we could, instead of using Androscoggin, we could just move our 911 calls there. The girl that is a big part of this was on vacation the past week before, and she came back to a pile of stuff on her desk. So she got back to me and said, "I'm sorry, I just got back and I've got all this other stuff to do." So she's working on it now. So I don't really have any numbers or even estimates from Waterville what their charges would be. So we're kind of in limbo, because it might not even be, if they're crazy money, it's a non-issue. We're better off staying where we are, but until we get some ideas from them. And then we have to take into account the other 4 towns besides us, Mount Vernon, Fayette, Wayne, and Vienna. So if we move, technically the equipment is the town of Readfield's equipment that we use. Even though we share it with mutual aid, they pay us for equipment and tower rentals. So it gets kind of, I think all the other 4 towns are gonna have to, so it's gonna take a little bit of work, but without numbers, I really can't go to any of the other towns and go that way. So we're just looking for some extra time. Like Eric said, we need a little bit more time to come up with some numbers.
So I don't want to call anyone disingenuous, but I'm going to say that out loud anyway. When I read this, would it be fair to assume, Lee, that between January 1 and May 31 of any year, the fire department might be a little bit busier than the rest of the year with accidents, chimney fires, snow, weather-related storms? Is that a period of time where I just find a very strange period of time to choose to talk about the length of calls? Why not do a year?
Yeah, I don't know, because fire is really hard to nail down, because you'd think in the middle of summers you wouldn't have a whole lot of accidents, but we have a lot of accidents.
Okay.
Sometimes more in the summer than we have in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, but in the spring, because of like now we're mostly high fire dangers, so we'll get wildfires, so that will spike us a little bit. Knock on wood, chimney fires are way down across the whole, group out here. I don't know if because people are using pellets and that's
Different
away from the
stuff,
chimney
yeah.
fires. We in Readfield, I don't think we've had a chimney fire in 2 years in the town of Readfield, which is incredible. Knock on wood, yeah. So it's just hard with fire, but winter generally we're probably more busier in the winter.
So I think your point is it might have been better to just take a year than to pick
I just think
some group of months.
I think to highlight 4 months of the year and talk about 20% of the calls being twice as long as the other 80% of the calls.
And that's a little misleading.
Well, that's what I thought.
On that, because numbers are awesome and you can make numbers work for you or against you or turn them in. I think what they're looking at run reports. So when they dispatch, they're counting from, so if they dispatch the ambulance at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they're saying, what was he, an average of 59 minutes or something for a medic call.
Yeah.
So that dispatcher, granted, they're listening for an hour if they're calling, but they're not on the radio constantly for 59 minutes. So the ambulance goes en route, they get on scene, they acknowledge, the ambulance does what they need to do, loads the patient, ambulance is en route to main general, and they give them the mileage, so it's twist numbers how you want them. It just is very misleading.
It's more of an on-hold situation.
Yeah, I
than
mean,
active.
granted the call is, but if they say an average fire call is 40 minutes, we talked to the dispatcher, out of that 40 minutes, probably the dispatcher's talking to us 5 minutes out of that call.
The point is you could have 10 different calls going at the same time.
And that's just the way it is. So the way he portrayed it, I don't think is totally fair, where the police, granted, however he worded it, but they're more constantly on the radio with law enforcement than they are with fire or rescue.
Right.
Yeah.
And we know that from call volume.
Yeah, and it just, so numbers, he's playing that number game is what I kind of thought. You can
Sure.
twist them however you want.
Because Sean kind of went down this path.
Don't blame me, Jason.
For your comments.
Boy, the way I started the meeting looks calm now.
So I just wanted to ask Lee if his numbers for calls match what Winthrop is saying.
No, they said last year we did 114 calls they dispatched us to.
And how many do your records
And
show?
mine is 86. And I give a little bit of difference because sometimes, like when we have windstorms and stuff, we'll have a tree down on Sturgeon Hill Road, then we'll be out, hey, we got one down on Church Road. They count it as a separate call. When we're out, I count it as one. So there's, there's a little ambiguity between our numbers, but I don't think there's that many. I've tried moving stuff around. The closest I got was if I add separate mutual aid calls to it, and then I can get closer to the number. So I don't know how they're figuring their numbers, which kind of drives me nuts.
So I'll just say, jump in and say that the numbers are tough, in part because we just got this yesterday. The new numbers with the information about the length of calls. But again, I think that what we're really seeing is that there's been a change in a formula that appeared to be eminently fair for a decade plus. Basing it on call volume makes sense when you have that many calls. It's a good metric, and the change came in pretty dramatically, and to have a 250% increase for us and similar for others, that it's almost as if they're backing into a rationale for a cost, as opposed to looking at what's the best way to distribute the cost. I think they were already there, and I've said as much to Anthony. But fundamentally, we can really get into the numbers and say, well, this is more relevant, this is less relevant. But in the end, I think it comes down to the fact that we had a system that worked, that was fair, and we're kind of left to set aside for something that basically just creates more revenue. And I think part of the reason for that is that they do have capital needs that they are looking to address. Again, my approach to capital is let's find out what the costs are and then assess them. And we also need to decide whether or not we want to be part of that system, because they're looking at $1 million upgrade and they're trying to get federal funds. And the federal funds might come through, they might not, but there's a whole lot of uncertainty here. And I can understand from a community perspective why Winthrop is doing what they're doing. I just don't think it's the right approach, and it does feel a little bit backwards. But yeah, I think that we can see where they're coming from. And I just wanted to point that out because, I do respect Anthony. I don't think anybody's intentionally trying to, mislead anybody. There might be some different angles on looking at numbers, but as you all know, that's what people do with numbers oftentimes. So, anyway, I just wanted to make that point about the numbers, and say that it's just a fundamental disagreement over what's equitable.
Any other questions, Dave?
If we were to change who dispatches us, what kind, you thinking that's the same kind of cost when we're all said and done?
Like I said, I haven't gotten any prices
Yeah, we
back
haven't gotten
yet,
that far.
and I haven't had anybody I really could, and somebody that's dispatched from Waterville, I haven't
Yeah.
talked to anybody to
And
see.
the only other question that I would have with that respect, where our ambulance service is in Winthrop, would that have any effect, having a different dispatch service with our
No,
response
'cause
time or anything, or it's all?
What it does, the whole system is messed up, I'll be honest with you, since the state said we gotta have, the state's gonna run the PSAPs, that was not a good idea back when they did it, that must have been 2005. Because all my concerns that I voiced then have come to fruition.
Just like school consolidation, right?
Same idea.
Yeah,
I mean,
really.
some consolidation and regionalization. The director at the time, Cliff Wall, says sometimes you regionalize and it costs you more money. And which is fine if you get better service. I wish we'd had this information before myself and Eric met with Winthrop the second time, but finally got the 911 call history for 2024. And ASO answered 862 911 calls.
What is ASO?
Androscoggin
Thank you.
Sheriff's Office, they're the PSAP that handles our 911 calls now. Within I think it was 362 was that other column on that.
Yep.
And I think those were duplicate calls for the same incident that was happening. So they had to answer the phone 1,200 times to have proper agencies dispatch. And some of those, because they have to EMD a call if it's a medical 911 call. They have to stay on the line with the caller, walk them through CPR, walk them through somebody in labor. So they have a lot more time, I think, invested in dispatching, regardless of what Anthony is saying. And we're getting charged, what is it, someone's 12,000, almost 13,000 for that.
Yeah, so
To put it in perspective.
Yeah.
That's for the Androscoggin.
For just them answering the 911 calls and transferring. This is where it doesn't change. So what Androscoggin does now, you dial 911, what's your emergency? Do you need police, fire, or medical? And so that tells them. So if it's medical assistance call in Readfield, they transfer that call to Winthrop. And then it goes to, so
The response time wouldn't have an effect.
it doesn't, because when you dial 911, lots of times it's like for fire. We had a kid working at RCC in Augusta. They'd get 911 calls, and honestly, it's almost 5 minutes before the fire department gets home. Just because there's so many transfers, and so when you dial 911, you're telling your story 3 times before you get to which. And that's one benefit to going to Waterville would be they answer the 911 call. So if it's fire, right, it's instantaneous. We're going to get dispatched. Mount Vernon Rescue is going to get dispatched, from Mount Vernon right at the same time. They're going to have to call from Waterville to Winthrop and have the ambulance dispatched. So it's the same. It's just a different place.
You're ultimately calling the same system.
Yeah, it's not a good system. It hasn't been since they put it in place, in my opinion. But
Would you expect, and I know you don't have the numbers, but would you expect that it would be similar from one PSAP center to another? So what Androscoggin is charging is probably a ballpark like it would be in Waterville?
I think we're at $450 per capita. I think through ASO. Somerset, we were, I think at the end of it, we were $3. But if they continued answering, they were going to be $4.50 or $5 per capita. So I think Waterville's going to be, in the $4 to $5.
So probably
range
similar,
per capita. So it's gonna be similar on that part that we're paying.
right?
So, and we can't really do anything about that, because we
Right.
have to have somebody answer 911. The dispatch part of it, I truly think there'll be less, because just the way we operate as a group for mutual aid, it's one frequency and it's one tone button for all 5 towns. So that takes the load off the dispatcher, and that's how the system was designed for Winthrop, to not add extra things for the dispatcher to do.
And you said that Belgrade is currently doing the Waterville system.
Yeah, they're with Waterville.
And in any conversations you've had with Belgrade, are they satisfied with their
They're
arrangement?
very happy with Waterville Com. The guys I talked to, they don't know the numbers, so I didn't get as far as.
That's fine.
to
Well, that was
compare.
one of the things that Anthony mentioned, that we've had a good relationship with them, and I want to make sure that we are cognizant of that and that we respect that, because if it turns out that it would cost us more to change, we don't want to have burned our bridges, so we can't continue working with Winthrop. We're just trying to find what's the best fit for our town, and that's what Winthrop is trying to do also. And so if we come
I mean,
together,
that's-
that's fine, and if not, it should be fine also.
I have no qualms with Winthrop service. That's the last thing I wanna do is really, it's not high on that's not what I wanna do. I don't wanna leave Winthrop, cause a lot of the dispatchers are local, so they know the area. So that helps, but
Right.
it also comes down to being fair. And I know what goes into dispatching, and I'm a taxpayer like everybody else, and it's just ludicrous for that type of increase.
What conversations, Eric or Lee, have you had with the other 4 towns?
So, the short answer is essentially none,
Okay.
in part because I and I think Lee wanted to give Winthrop a chance to do the right thing before we end up trying to work as a group to move on.
Well, isn't the acting town manager from Wayne on the Winthrop Town Council?
She's the chair.
She is, yeah, and but that's a kind of separate issue, and it's definitely a conflict, but that's what she'll have to work at reconciling if and when it comes up. But so there's been minimal conversation. I know Lee's had a few discussions with some of the other chiefs, but I have not taken any steps to talk about this administratively with any of the other towns.
Okay. But
So
as-
another reason why we want a little bit more time.
Right, and
We-
it's,
We wanna have some numbers. I mean, the other chiefs, they're on board with, I think, on with it. Vienna's very interested. And they're the only ones I can truly honestly say they're 100% behind it. But Mount Vernon, their dispatching is handled through a town budget, it's not even in the fire department's budget, as well as Fayette's, and Wayne's isn't in his budget. So like those 3 chiefs, they can suggest, so it's gonna, if we keep going that far, it's gonna probably be more of a top air conversation with the select board members and like that.
yeah, and I think you made this, so I want to make sure I have it clear. The equipment that's used to work between the towns is owned by Readfield, and the other 4 towns contribute to its cost.
Yeah, we charge them a yearly fee, like Winthrop charges us, we charge them maintenance and.
So
for
if
the
we
towers.
change to a different location for our calls, they would have to change with us to continue using the same equipment,
Or
or
they
they would
have
have to have their
have
own equipment.
Their own equipment installed where we take ours out of Winthrop.
And do we know yet if the equipment that we have will be compatible with the place we're thinking of?
I've got the radio guy that we use, he also does a lot of work at Waterville. He's doing some mapping to see, and right now, until we actually put test equipment up, we're not gonna know, but right now, looking at the maps, it looks like we can use the same system we got now. UHF link. So it looks like Waterville tower will be able to hit our tower on calls.
So do you think before our next meeting on the 19th, you'll have information? Or is that still too tight?
We'll have more information. I don't know if we'll have everything.
Can we
but-
make sure it's on the agenda again?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I just
absolutely.
think
Yeah,
we wanna be able to support whatever's going on and
yeah.
keep these conversations pretty fresh.
Do we have a contract deadline? Like, I don't mean deadline. Do we have a contract end date that we renew by?
So with Winthrop, it typically is the fiscal year. I don't recall when the last time was that I saw a contract, from them, but, it was probably sometime last year or maybe even two years ago.
I don't know if they had a contract, but they send us one bill and we pay it.
Yeah, yeah,
So we're paid with Winthrop until July 1st.
that's right, yeah.
Okay,
And
so
then I
is,
think, is Anthony still, if we were to accept his new, is that the 3-year contract, is that still?
That's still up for discussion. I expect that's what they would look for, but, I'm not, the letter that he sent didn't include any provision for that, but I know that's something that they're looking for, is a multi-year contract, which makes sense, but I think it only makes sense for us if it's a good deal. And I guess the last thing I wanted to say before we, maybe wrap up is, that we did look at those PSAP costs, and that is it's a substantial service. And, they're 12,000, almost 13, and Winthrop right now, we're paying a little over 11. So, I mean, maybe even if that's a comparable, which I think it is a good comp, it might be 10-20% that we might be, underpaying perhaps, but it's really not that far off.
but to double, triple, quadruple, just doesn't seem,
Doesn't sit
it's
well.
right. But we'll find out once we get some numbers.
Yeah.
The numbers are the thing. I mean, right now, we have nothing to compare apples to apples with, so.
Yep. So I think what I've heard is we'll put this on our next meeting agenda, which is the 19th, and then we meet again, I think the night before town meeting. So I think that's the 9th of June. And I think it would be really good once you get some numbers. Just my opinion, you guys weigh in on this, to start the conversations with the other 4 towns so that it's not a surprise.
Yeah, no, and they're all aware of it, and it's just, I haven't gone back to them, cause I haven't, like Eric said, we were trying to work with Winthrop.
Right,
Which Winthrop.
They made some steps in the right direction.
They made some
Yeah.
steps in the right way. If they make a little bit more, then this wouldn't be a topic.
right. Well, and we just need to be careful. Eric, you'll advise us that if we do decide that we want to make a change, how we notify the other towns, because we want to do it the right way so that it works out
Yeah. and-
correctly for contracts for everybody and nobody's left like, well, Readfield changed this and they never told us about it and why did they do that?
Yeah, no, we'll make sure we communicate. And actually, I mean, honestly, after this meeting, and with the information we're getting, I am going to be starting those discussions with the other town managers about, about this, issue and.
Just letting them know that we're really seriously considering this, getting another proposal.
Exactly.
So it's,
And I know the other chiefs have informed their town managers, I know Jason's told
Great.
the select board up there.
Yeah.
Taylor talked to the acting town manager there. No comment.
She's in a tough spot.
And I know Eric has talked with Mark from Fayette, so he's aware of this also, so
Okay,
it's not
great.
gonna be a surprise, I just, at the same token, I don't wanna leave the other 4 towns in the lurch,
right,
you know, I don't want, they're our mutual aid partners, so if 2 of them aren't swapping, or wouldn't wanna swap, it just, I don't wanna mess up our relationships and mutual aid over Winthrop Dispatch.
right.
So that-
Yeah, it's tough.
And I just wanna
that's
make
a
sure that,
consideration about it.
I wanna make sure we're protected and we don't make a mistake in the sequence of the events that we're gonna authorize. Cause we don't need that.
No, understood, and I mean, we've approached this very cautiously so far, and we'll continue to do so, make sure that, that we're, maintaining the interests of the town as a top priority, and that includes the relationships with our neighbors, so.
Okay, anybody else? Are we good? Okay. Other business, thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
Other business, et cetera. So we just talked about our next 2 meetings and town meeting. Probably not. We do have one more public hearing, most likely, and that is on Wednesday,
I'll pull it up here, May 7th.
May 7th.
Yep.
And that one, we agreed if we don't have a large turnout, we would not have the one later in the month. And then there's a second meeting in June, and that takes us through the fiscal year.
23rd.
I just thought I would let you guys know so you're not shocked when you read the Messenger. I have part 1 of a 2-part article on what county government is and what it's costing us. And the second part will have me raising questions about if these are all the services, are they worth what you're paying for them? And I think once people read through things, they may have a better understanding, maybe not a different perspective, but a greater understanding of what's there. The funding for the jails, Eric, I think you got the email today. There's a bill that was heard and they're gonna go into work meetings on it over the next couple weeks, but it's to provide more funding for the county jails. And if that happens, we won't get a lower tax bill from the county this year.
Needless to say.
But it would go, if they get more funding, then that would go into the jail account, not just the county undesignated fund at large. And so that would reduce costs in the coming year, or it would help to cover their $1 million deficit that they have right now. So depending on how much that might be worth, that could be really worthwhile, and hopefully that bill would be a perpetuity bill, so it would be ongoing moving forward, which would certainly cut costs in the future. So, anybody else? I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor? We are adjourned at 7:29.
Before you go, I need you to sign something for the county here, for the county, sorry, the school, the RSU budget. You have to confirm that you've